in the dominions of his Catholic Majesty, and propounded that it was absolutely necessary to send some forces to the Isle of St. Catherine, sufficient to retake it from the pirates, the honour and interest of his Majesty of Spain being very narrowly concerned herein. Otherwise the pirates by such conquests might easily in course of time possess themselves of all the countries thereabouts. To this some made answer, that the pirates, not being able to subsist in the said island, would of necessity consume and waste themselves, and be forced to quit it, without any necessity of retaking it; that consequently it was not worth the while to engage in so many expenses and troubles as this would cost. Notwithstanding which, Don John, being an expert and valiant soldier, ordered that provisions should be conveyed to Puerto Velo for the use of the militia, and transported himself thither with no small danger of his life. Here he arrived July 2nd, with most things necessary to the expedition in hand, where he found in the port a good ship, and well mounted, called the St. Vincent, that belonged to the company of the negroes, which he manned and victualled very well, and sent to the Isle of St. Catherine, constituting Captain Joseph Sanchez Ximenez, Major of Puerto Velo, commander thereof. He carried with him 270 soldiers, and 37 prisoners of the same island, besides 34 Spaniards of the garrison of Puerto Velo, 29 mulattoes of Panama, 12 Indians, very dexterous at shooting with bows and arrows, 7 expert and able gunners, 2 lieutenants, 2 pilots, 1 surgeon, and 1 priest of the order of St. Francis for their chaplain. Don John soon after gave orders to all the officers how to behave themselves, telling them that the governor of Carthagena would supply them with more men, boats, and all things else necessary for that enterprise, to which effect he had already written to the said governor. July 24th, Don John setting sail with a fair wind, he called before him all his people, and made them a speech, encouraging them to fight against the enemies of their country and religion, and especially against those inhuman pirates, who had committed so many horrid cruelties upon the subjects of his Catholic Majesty; withal promising every one most liberal rewards, especially to such as should behave themselves well in the service of their king and country. Thus Don John bid them farewell, and the ship set sail under a favourable gale. The 22nd they arrived at Carthagena, and presented a letter to the governor thereof, from the noble and valiant Don John, who received it with testimonies of great affection to the person of Don John and his Majesty's service; and seeing their resolution to be conformable to his desires, he promised them his assistance, with 1 frigate, 1 galleon, 1 boat, and 126 men, 1/2 out of his own garrison, and the other half mulattoes. Thus being well provided with necessaries, they left the port of Carthagena August 2nd, and the 10th they arrived in sight of St. Catherine's, towards the western point thereof, and though the wind was contrary, yet they reached the port, and anchored within it, having lost one of their boats by foul weather, at the rock called Quitasinos. The pirates, seeing our ships come to an anchor, gave them presently 3 guns with bullets, which were soon answered in the same coin. Hereupon Major Joseph Sanchez Ximenez sent ashore to the pirates one of his officers, to require them in the name of the Catholic king his master to surrender the island, seeing they had taken it in the midst of peace between the 2 crowns of Spain and England, and that if they would be obstinate, he would certainly put them all to the sword. The pirates made answer, that the island had once before belonged unto the governor and dominion of the king of England, and that instead of surrendering it, they preferred to lose their lives. On Friday the 13th, 3 negroes from the enemy came swimming aboard our admiral, These brought intelligence that all the pirates upon the island were only 72 in number, and that they were under a great consternation, seeing such considerable forces come against them. With this intelligence the Spaniards resolved to land, and advanced towards the fortresses, which ceased not to fire as many great guns against them as they possibly could, which were answered in the same manner on our side till dark night. On Sunday the 15th, the day of the Assumption of Our Lady, the weather being very calm and clear, the Spaniards began to advance thus: the ship St. Vincent, riding admiral, discharged 2 whole broadsides on the battery called the Conception. The ship St. Peter, that was vice admiral, discharged likewise her guns against the other battery named St. James. Meanwhile our people landed in small boats, directing their course towards the point of the battery last mentioned, and thence they marched towards the gate called Cortadura. Lieutenant Francis de Caceres, being desirous to view the strength of the enemy with only 15 men, was compelled to retreat in haste, by reason of the great guns, which played so furiously on the place where he stood, they shooting not only pieces of iron and small bullets, but also the organs of the church, discharging in every shot 80 pipes at a time. Notwithstanding this heat of the enemy, Captain Don Joseph Ramirez de Leyva, with 60 men, made a strong attack, wherein they fought on both sides very desperately, till at last he overcame and forced the pirates to surrender the fort. On the other side, Captain John Galeno, with 90 men, passed over the hills, to advance that way towards the castle of St. Teresa. Meanwhile, Major Don Joseph Sanchez Ximenez, as commander in chief, with the rest of his men, set forth from the battery of St. James, passing the port with 4 boats, and landing in despite of the enemy. About this same time Captain John Galeno began to advance with the men he led from the forementioned fortress, so that our men made 3 attacks on 3 several sides, at one and the same time, with great courage, till the pirates, seeing many of their men already killed, and that they could in no manner subsist any longer, retreated towards Cortadura, where they surrendered themselves and the whole island into our hands. Our people possessed themselves of all, and set up the Spanish colours, as soon as they had rendered thanks to God Almighty for the victory obtained on such a signalized day. The number of dead were 6 men of the enemy's, with many wounded, and 70 prisoners. On our side was only 1 man killed, and 4 wounded. There were found on the island 800 pounds of powder, 250 pounds of small bullets, with many other military provisions. Among the prisoners were taken also 2 Spaniards, who had bore arms under the English against his Catholic Majesty. These were shot to death the next day, by order of the Major. The 10th day of September arrived at the isle an English vessel, which being seen at a great distance by the Major, he ordered Le Sieur Simon, who was a Frenchman, to go and visit the said ship, and tell them that were on board, that the island belonged still to the English. He performed the command, and found in the said ship only 14 men, 1 woman and her daughter, who were all instantly made prisoners. The English pirates were all transported to Puerto Velo, excepting 3, who by order of the governor were carried to Panama, there to work in the castle of St. Jerome. This fortification is an excellent piece of workmanship, and very strong, being raised in the middle of the port, of a quadrangle form, and of very hard stone. Its height is 88 geometrical feet, the wall being 14, and the curtains 75 feet in diameter. It was built at the expense of several private persons, the governor of the city furnishing the greatest part of the money, so that it cost his majesty nothing. End of chapter 9. Read by Lars Rolander.